A Hyundai Elantra N has been pulled over for an exhaust violation again, but this time things are quite different. Let's figure out what's going on here and see if Hyundai Elantras are being targeted for their loud exhaust. You've probably seen the first video where a guy was pulled over in California with his 2022 Hyundai Elantra N for having a loud exhaust, and the cop sent him to the state referee to get it checked, and it didn't pass. And I'm gonna drop a link to those videos down below so you can check that out yourself. But in a nutshell, the resolution still hasn't happened in that situation. We're still waiting for the guy to get back to me to figure out what happened. He was gonna go to court. This is a whole different situation, and this takes place in the lovely state of Utah. I had a conversation with the guy. His name is Tristan. He's also a young guy, also Hyundai Elantra N, and he got pulled over for having a loud exhaust. So let me go through the conversation with you, and then we'll figure out what's really happening here with this car and how things might be different from state to state. First off, Tristan, thank you very much for allowing me to share your story here on YouTube. Here's where it all starts. Well, I got pulled over for my exhaust. Officer told me I needed to fix it from backfiring and get it inspected or my registration will be suspended. This is the conversation I had with Tristan. Now, it is a little bit out of order, so I asked him what started the whole incident. And he says, I was driving down the main stretch of road in my town taking a right-hand turn from a red light. As I came around the corner, a police officer was parked on the right-hand shoulder. I pass him going the speed limit around 40 miles an hour in fourth gear. I have someone in the car who is a witness to the speed. So the officer pulls out behind a couple of cars that also went through the light, and he stays behind them for a while. Then he pulls in for a minute and then proceeds to pull me over. I pull over and he tells me he pulled me over for an improper muffler noise suppression system. And I asked him, do you remember what mode you're in? And custom, and it is set to the normal driving transmission, so it'll select the lowest gear. So I asked him again, was the valve open or closed in that setting? And he said it was opened. This is the ticket. There's 2 pages to it, and I asked him to redact or black out his personal information. And so you can see he got pulled over in the city of Ogden, Utah, and the charge is improper muffler noise suppression system. And then he cites the vehicle code, and it is an infraction. An infraction, of course, is the lightest possible kind of ticket that you can get. And this is essentially a fix-it ticket, but let's see what the implications are if he doesn't fix this. It says, as the driver registered owner, you are required to make the necessary repairs and obtain a Utah State Safety Inspection certificate to bring your vehicle back into compliance. This must be done within 14 business days of receipt of this order. In addition, you must have the repairs validated and signed off by a trooper assigned to the UHP, that's Utah Highway Patrol, Vehicle Safety Section. Once validated, the letter must be emailed to this address. And here is the promissory agreement. In other words, what's going to happen if he doesn't follow this order. He says, I understand that failure to comply and maintain such repairs will result in the immediate revocation of the registration and license plates of the above identified vehicle. So if he doesn't take care of this, what's going to happen is that they are going to suspend his registration and he won't be able to drive the car. Let's look up the statute that covers this particular violation. It is effective 7/1/2021, so a fairly new law. This section is called Mufflers, Prevention of Noise, Smoke, and Fumes, Air Pollution Control Devices. So this seems to be aimed at emissions, but also noise. 1A, this is the section that he's charged with. A vehicle shall be equipped, maintained, and operated to prevent excessive or unusual noise. Pretty straightforward. Most laws are not so straightforward. And B, a motor vehicle shall be equipped with a muffler or other effective noise suppressing system in good working order and constant operation. And C, a person may not use a muffler cutout, bypass, or similar device on a vehicle. So this is pretty similar to the California noise law, but it's not so specific, doesn't set a certain decibel level, aka 90 decibels, 95 decibels in California that the California guy had to meet. So this is just an unusual or excessive noise statute, And basically all it says is that you can't mess with the noise systems, the noise suppression systems on the vehicle. So you've got to keep that stuff in place, and it has to be in good working order, and it has to be operating constantly. And let's see what happens if he should not comply with this particular law. What are the penalties? A person who violates the provisions of subsection 2A is guilty of an infraction and shall be fined not less than a $50 fine for the violation, or not less than $100 for a subsequent violation. So this is not the biggest fine possible. This is a lot less than the California guy was looking at. So here's how we continued to interact with the police officer. He said, sure, I can do that. The officer told me I had to take it to get inspected by a state trooper and make sure the muffler exhaust was in proper working condition to fix any loud noises from continuing. Okay, so he's got 14 days to take care of this. And I asked him how was the interaction with the officer, and he said he was mostly friendly. And when I told him it was stock, he was extremely confused. And I said, what are your plans? Do you need to take it to court? Can you get it dismissed after getting it inspected? And he says, plan on taking it to get inspected. Officer never gave me a court date or is one on the citation, so that is my only option. In fact, he did not have a notice to appear like you frequently get with a ticket. I even reached out to a family member who is a police officer, and they've never given out a ticket like this. They couldn't provide any other way. Okay, so basically he's only got one option. That is to get his car inspected. Now this is different than the California situation, where in California the driver of the Hyundai Elantra got sent to BAR. This is the Bureau of Automotive Repair. In that particular case, he had to have the car pass a noise decibel level inspection, which is 95 dB, and his car didn't pass in that case because it was tested with the valve open, even though that's not the correct test procedure, and he didn't pass, and so he's sort of between this rock and a hard place now when he went back to Hyundai, and Hyundai said they can't do anything, and now they say that they can, and he's got an attorney. Anyways, you can go check out that playlist. Totally different situation. In that particular situation here, it's just an inspection from the state trooper. So when I was looking at the citation, I noticed that it hadn't been signed, and I thought that was kind of odd, so I asked him that. He said he didn't have you sign it. He says, I did. He kept the copy, though. He didn't give a copy of the signed citation, so gotcha. So I said, you're supposed to take it to the highway patrol when you get it inspected? Yes. Oh, and what I failed to mention is that he didn't have his resonator on the car. That is the big difference here. This guy took out the resonator. He's still got the muffler in place. The resonator is not in place. So this car is definitely louder than stock. I don't know by how much, but presumably quite a bit, because the car is pretty loud in stock mode, in N mode. Apparently it is over 95 dB, so without the resonator, it's going to be louder than that. This is a pretty loud car, as I'm sure everybody watching this video knows. And I asked him, are you planning to put the resonator back on? And he said, no, not planning on it unless it fails without it. And then I asked him, did you think he was looking for some other reason to pull you over? And he said, nope, none at all. So this is one of the big differences here between Utah and California. Utah has no particular noise regulation. It's just that the car has to have all its noise equipment in place. This car apparently didn't. In California, you've got to meet a decibel requirement, which also applies to motorcycles, by the way, for the people that were asking. And it's a lower noise requirement for motorcycles in California. It's only 80 decibels. I don't know how any motorcycles pass, but that's sort of a separate situation. So what finally happened, and what are the differences between what happened here and in California? It says he took it to the state safety inspection and it passed. Then he went to Hyundai just to get something that confirms it was stock. Then he had the state trooper come out and confirm the fixes, even though there's no fixes actually. He took one look at the car and laughed that I had gotten pulled over for it. He passed me off without really looking at the car. We talked about the car for a minute, what it is. He said he had no idea, so he said he'd educate himself and tell the department that pulled me over to educate themselves before pulling over other cars. Said if I had any more problems with it, give him a call and he'd take care of it. This sounds like a completely different situation than the cop in California, who was acting basically like a D-bag, if you want to, whatever term you want to use. That guy was acting very differently, and he was on a power trip. And the final thing, all this with the resonator removed? And he said, yep, nobody even mentioned it. So this guy, Tristan, I think he dodged a bullet. He went driving around with a stock Hyundai, but with the resonator removed, and he managed to get the car passed. Very, very interesting, very different situation than what we have in California. Now, a lot of people want to know, is the Hyundai Elantra N a target for the police? I think it's pretty obvious that the answer is yes. We've got a guy who's been pulled over in California. We've also got a guy who's been pulled over in Utah. So let me know down below if you think the Hyundai Elantra N is being unfairly targeted by police for its apparently loud exhaust. In California, the guy that got pulled over, I still haven't heard back from him. Apparently he had his court date on February 24th. That date has now come and gone, and I haven't heard from him. It is possible that his court date got bumped once again, but he has been off social media for as far as I can see. He hasn't been in contact with me, and I haven't seen him post on Reddit. But I definitely will post a conclusion to that story, and if you've got good stories, hit me up on Instagram. It's right over here. It's at RevMatchTV. I want to hear your stories. Please let me know. Also, let me know what kind of content that you want to see aside from reviews. My name is Eric. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks for about 1 million views on those other videos, and I will see you in the next video.